It's kind of weird because Jake Paul is extremely bigger than Tank. And I mean, but with it being a exhibition, it makes sense.
I'm gonna start like this. First of all, if you're a boxer and you're not taking note or notice of what Jake Paul is doing, you're worried about criticizing his boxing skills, then you're the fool.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big.
When titans collide, Jake Paul versus Gervonta, Tank Davis in a clash that igniting the boxing world. Two of the sport's most talked about figures. Social media sensation turned fighter Jake Paul and pound-for-pound powerhouse Gervonta Tank Davis are finally set to square off. The bout has legend and fans alike buzzing, with opinions split across the board. Tank steps into the ring armed with devastating knockout power, lightning-fast hands, and a resume built on dismantling elite opponents. On the other side, Paul brings physical advantages in height and reach, along with the pressure of a spotlight he's never shied away from and a habit of defying expectations. Some legend predict a familiar outcome, Davis dominating with surgical precision and fluid movement. But others see a potential upset brewing, where Paul's unorthodox path and raw grit could flip the script and deliver boxing's biggest shock of the year.
What? Fair play. If he does go out and fight Anthony Joshua, which I wouldn't advise because that would be extremely dangerous, then fair play if he was to do that. And all the critics and people like myself would have to shut the hell up because I always said he's looking for fights that were manufactured, looking for fights that were predetermined. And by that, I don't mean fake fights. I don't mean fixed fights. I mean fights where the odds are so stacked in his favor that, of course, he's going to win. And, of course, we see this. The latest match that's going to go down November 14th at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. Jake Paul is taking on, you've seen it by now, Gervonta Tank Davis. A man that is a lightweight in boxing. Now, lightweight in MMA is 155 pounds. Lightweight in boxing, 135 pounds. Jake Paul, I think when he weighed in for Mike Tyson, was 227 pounds.
Official weight, 227.2 pounds.
That is, if I'm not mistaken, a 92-pound weight difference. Almost a 100-pound weight difference. It's insane. Let's say he comes in at 200 pounds. It's still a 65-pound weight advantage, which is absolutely ridiculous. How can you be out there claiming to want to fight the best people on the planet and then going out there and taking on a guy that is maybe 92 pounds heavier, that is at least 65 pounds heavier than you? That is called one thing. That's called being a bully. It was bad enough when he fought Mike Tyson, a man that was 58 years old, and he was walking around like, oh, I just beat the best man on the planet. I just destroyed Mike Tyson and went out there and I beat him, and him and his brother are all celebrating and shit like that. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
Location switch, streaming spotlight, and a size gap that can't be ignored in a surprising twist. The highly anticipated clash between Jake Paul and Gervonta Tank Davis has been relocated. Originally slated for Atlanta, the bout will now take place on November 14th at the Casa Center in Miami. The announcement came via MVP Promotions on social media. The war is no longer in Atlanta. Jake Paul versus Gervonta Tank Davis is taking over Miami. Same date, same fight, new city. The fight will stream globally on Netflix, marking another high-profile moment in boxing's shift toward digital platforms. While critics continue to label it a spectacle, official sources have classified the event as an exhibition, though the buzz around it suggests anything but casual. One factor that can't be overlooked is a significant size disparity. In his most recent outing, Jake Paul weighed in at approximately 199.4 pounds, competing as a cruiserweight. Davis, on the other hand, has been fighting in the lightweight division at around 135 pounds. Due to the wide gap in weight, Davis says WBA lightweight title will not be on the line.
Boxing fans are losing their minds over this Jake Paul versus Tank Davis fight. And honestly, can you blame them? Why would Tank agree to this? I mean, look at the graphic. Jake is 6'1", 199 pounds with a 6'4" wingspan. Tank, 5'5", 133 pounds, a 5'7" wingspan. Tank fighting me would be a fairer matchup. We're basically the same size. And you wonder why fans think Jake's fights are rigged? Because every time we see some nonsense like this, it feels like WWE with boxing gloves. Here's the kicker though. Jake threatened to sue anyone who calls his fights rigged. Yeah, you know, the same guy who preaches freedom of speech now wants to ban opinions. After that clown show with Mike Tyson that left everyone scratching their heads. Maybe, and I'm just throwing it out there, if your own management company wasn't promoting and sponsoring your fights, fans might actually believe what they're watching. Until then, don't be mad that people are skeptical. Be mad that your boxing career looks more like a scripted reality TV show.
Questions linger over fight terms and fairness despite the hype. Key details surrounding the matchup remain unclear. There's been no official confirmation of a contract weight, round limit, or whether standard professional rules will apply. This lack of transparency has only fueled speculation and controversy. For many in the boxing world, the event is being seen less as a traditional bout and more as a crossover spectacle, blurring the lines between sport and entertainment. Critics are raising concerns about fairness, fighter safety, and the implication for the sanctity of boxing's weight class structure, especially given the massive size disparity between Paul and Davis.
Tank is not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Tank cannot sell a fight in his own division. You have the Paul brothers and they come over to boxing. Their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're going to do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're going to spot us some pounds. Tank has one job to do, that it doesn't make any difference, that boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skills, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Tank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. No, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Tank Davis has already began this. When you choose a dum-dum, don't be surprised when he goes out and acts like a...
Crawford cast doubt on legitimacy of Paul versus Davis showdown. Terence, Crawford isn't buying the hype. The former undisputed champion views the upcoming Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis clash with a healthy dose of skepticism, primarily due to the stark size mismatch. In Crawford's eyes, this is less a competitive contest and more of a made-for-TV spectacle, likening it to a glorified sparring session disguised as a real fight. While he fully acknowledges Davis' elite skill set and explosive talent, Crawford warns that size matters, and if Jake Paul, with his much larger frame, manages to land cleanly, the momentum could shift dramatically. Still, he remains doubtful that the bout will unfold under standard professional conditions, repeatedly stressing that the weight disparity erodes any illusion of parity. For Crawford, calling this a fair fight between equals simply doesn't hold up.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank, it's over.
Shakur Stevenson calls it. It's over with undefeated and widely respected. Shakur Stevenson isn't shy about where he stands on the Paul versus Davis spectacle. To him, the matchup is an unfair test, especially for Davis, who will be giving up serious size to the much larger Jake Paul. Still, Stevenson has no doubt about the outcome. Despite the physical disadvantage, Stevenson believes Davis' experience, technical mastery, and ring IQ will make the fight look one-sided. He expects Tank to stay sharp, relying on footwork, precision, and boxing fundamentals rather than trading power shots with a bigger man. Stevenson doubts Paul possesses a refined, skilled fight IQ to match Davis' speed and strategy, predicting Davis will cruise to a decision win rather than chase a knockout. While he criticizes a fight spectacle-like nature, calling it disrespectful to the sport, he remains confident that Davis is levels above Paul in pure boxing ability.
He's here when you've got what is like a 70-pound difference between these two guys.
I mean, size will play some part of the fight, but if I'm thinking like I'm Tank, I'm probably just going to go out there and try to outbox him and use my knowledge and IQ against him. So I can see Tank just outboxing him and making it real easy.
Is there any way you could, any realistic or legitimate way in your mind you could see Jake Paul winning a fight against Tank?
No.
No way.
Nope.
Not a lot of people have talked about Jake and said he's got good power. Not even and I get anything could technically happen, but you don't even see a realistic shot where he could land one big punch, and Tank being so much smaller, he just can't handle the power.
Nah, not at all. I think Tank is he's been boxing his whole life. He's been boxing since a kid, so I doubt like that's gonna be an issue or problem. I think Jake is good for where he's at, but I think it's just levels.
What do you think about the rumors of Tank and Jake fight?
Man, Tank disrespectful to the sport if he choose that over fighting with me. I'm the best fighter in the sport. I've been telling him that. And he called cap on it. So if he won't call cap and say I'm not who I say I am, come prove it. I think it's dangerous for him to go back in there and fight Lamont. I think Lamont is a hell of a fighter. I can see that going left. So he better be on his A game.
Daniel Cormier weighs in. Risk, reward, and reputational stakes former UFC champion Daniel Cormier offers a more measured take on the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis showdown. He commends Paul for taking a bold risk by stepping into the ring with a fighter of Davis' elite caliber. Acknowledging both the ambition and danger involved in such a move, however, Cormier doesn't shy away from pointing out the glaring imbalance, particularly the weight difference, which, in his eyes, makes it hard to view the fight through the lens of a fair, traditional boxing match. He underscores that Davis is clearly superior in skill, experience, and boxing pedigree, which puts Paul in a vulnerable position, reputationally and physically. Cormier also reflects on the stakes for both men. A loss for Paul could undermine his growing credibility as a boxer. But for Davis, a defeat to a significantly larger opponent could tarnish his image, even if the odds are skewed. While Cormier stops short of making a firm prediction, he leans toward Davis based on pure boxing merit, though he admits that Paul's size advantage keeps the outcome from being entirely predictable. Would you like this included in a compiled feature piece with all the fighter perspectives? I can help stitch it all together cleanly.
I swear to God, I was on a plane coming home from Las Vegas. When Luis told me Gervonta Davis is fighting Jake Paul, I said, get the bleep out of here. I said, you're a bleep liar. Jake Paul is fighting Gervonta Tank Davis. There's one problem. He fights at 135 pounds. Gervonta Davis is that much better than Jake Paul at boxing. But Gervonta Davis in his last fight weighed 133.8 pounds. And I'm not over here in the business of just crapping on Jake Paul. I am much more respectful of what he's starting to build as a professional boxer. You're fighting a guy that's better than you. He's just much smaller. But that guy, because he's better than you, what if he wins? Everything Jake Paul has done is wiped completely out. Gervonta Davis loses to Jake Paul. Obviously, it's going to hurt who Gervonta Davis is. But he lost to a guy that's going to be upwards of 70 pounds bigger than him when he steps into the boxing ring. But I will tell you this right now, without a shadow of a doubt. I will watch this. Tank Davis is 30-0-1. You want to talk about Jake Paul fighting a real boxer? That's a real boxer. You can't make this stuff up, man. It's true. They're fighting.
Teofimo Lopez. It's not about legacy. It's about the spotlight for Teofimo Lopez. The upcoming Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis clash isn't about titles, rankings, or legacy. It's about entertainment, exposure, and economics. He frames the bout as a showcase event, driven more by spectacle and profit than by the traditional stakes of a championship fight. Lopez makes no judgment about that shift. In fact, he sees value in it. With both fighters poised to earn massive paydays and draw mainstream attention, he believes there's no shame in capitalizing on the moment. While it may lack the prestige of a title bout, Lopez argues that even an exhibition-style fight can serve boxing's bigger picture, be by attracting non-traditional audiences, generating buzz, and amplifying the sport's cultural relevance. This matchup, however unconventional, proves that boxing still commands the spotlight when personalities, drama, and showmanship collide. For Lopez, that kind of visibility matters.
And I'm actually very happy for Gervonta and Jake. I really am, man. It's good for the sport in some way, you know?
So a heavyweight versus a lightweight.
Yeah.
You got a fly hit me, yeah. A heavyweight versus a lightweight. How's this going to work?
Hey, they make it work. It's an exhibition for a reason. So, you know, they know what they're doing. And, you know, shout out to Netflix and shout out to both of them, honestly. Like I said, I think a lot of people in the boxing world are kind of upset. I could care less. I think they're going to go out there and make their money. It falls on the number 8 for a reason. They're going to make a lot of money.
Have you got a prediction for that fight?
My prediction? A show. A show.
Well, clearly it's a show, but when you've got a lot of people underestimating Jake Paul once again, but when you've got a heavyweight boxer who knows how to throw punches and knows the basics against a lightweight, it's quite a difference. I mean, have you sparred heavyweights before?
Yeah.
For competitive sparring in the ring?
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same, not at all. Definitely got to move. I've actually played around a few times, went through between their legs just to duck around. But yeah, because they're taller, you know. But I think for that competition, that fight, it reminds me a lot like Big Show, The Big Show, and Floyd Mayweather when they fought in WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And will that end the same way?
Possibly. Maybe some brass knuckles in there too.
Can you see Jake Paul knocking out Gervonta Davis?
It's boxing, man. And if it's a show like this, anything goes, anything happens. You know, we expected Mike Tyson to do something, didn't go out that way. Jake Paul's training very hard, so, you know, kudos to both guys. I'm not going to...
Eddie Hearn. Great for business, bad for boxing's integrity. Promoter Eddie Hearn shares a view that the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis fight is more spectacle than sport. But he goes a step further, warning that such matchups blur the line between boxing and entertainment in a way that could erode the sport's integrity to I.N. Hearn's eyes. The bout isn't competitive by traditional boxing standards. Instead, it's a celebrity-driven business venture, crafted more for headlines and viral moments than for legitimate athletic merit. He highlights the obvious size mismatch as proof that this isn't about testing skills on a level playing field. It's a carefully packaged spectacle built to dominate the mainstream. While Hearn openly admits that, from a business standpoint, the fight is a win, guaranteeing massive global interest, packed arenas, and sky-high pay-per-view numbers, he's also candid about his discomfort. As a lifelong promoter of legitimate contests, he finds it concerning when commercial appeal outweighs competitive credibility.
They always told us that it was, we were looking at that fight for February of next year, and they always said that there was a chance that Jake would fight in November. I think, wasn't I the one that broke Jake Paul against Gervonta Davis 6 months ago or something? I knew that they'd agreed that deal. I didn't know they were about to announce it then, but I did know that they'd agreed that deal previously. So I don't like it, if I'm honest. I mean, I think we need to really differentiate between boxing and an entertainment concept, and that's what that is. It's a freak show. It's entertainment. It's a lightweight fighting a cruiserweight. With, I don't know, is it bigger gloves and certain minutes per round? I don't know what it is, but, I understand the market and I understand this freak show, shock kind of the world mentality of people potentially tuning in. Is that a step too far? Maybe. I mean, I hated Jake Paul against Mike Tyson, but it did massive numbers. I hate Jake Paul against Gervonta Davis. It'll probably do massive numbers. So that's when you really have to differentiate yourself between, just because you don't like it doesn't mean it isn't going to do good business. Now, whether you want to be involved with it is another kettle of fish. I don't want to be involved with it, but I do respect the fact that it's going to do big numbers. It's just not boxing. And I don't think we should promote it as boxing.
In the meantime, then, Eddie, where does that leave you with Anthony Joshua? Are you exploring other options for the end of this year, or are you still looking at that fight for the beginning?
Yeah, no, we're not interested in the Jake Paul fight right now after that. I mean, we're not going to wait around till November. Is it November or December, whenever it is?